Hey guys, welcome back to Linda's Resin Room. So I'm really excited today because Let's Resin has sent me a couple of packages of some products to try. So let's open these up and then we'll decide what we're going to make today. I'm going to use my craft knife, but I want to be very careful that I don't cut anything that's in there. And it's another box. I'm going to throw that out of my way. All right. We have resin. Resin's always nice to get. It's part A, part B epoxy resin from Let's Resin. Can't wait to try this. Okay. There is a thank you card in there. Also, user manual. Tips for when it's hot or cold outside. And a stir stick. Oh, about threw the stir stick away. I don't want to throw that away. All right, now let's get this one opened. Okay. I think my knife's getting a little dull. Put the cap back on that. Don't want to get cut. Okay. It's the Let's Resin alcohol ink. It's the 48 piece. This is awesome. Okay. And it has a thank you card with the colors on the back. That's great. And the instructions for using the alcohol ink. Now let's look at some of these colors. Blue, turquoise, sinker white. Everybody needs a sinker white. Cranberry. That's a pretty color. Peach red. All right, guys, let's get some resin mixed up. I'm going to readjust the angle of my camera, and we're going to make something with this stuff. I'm also going to pull my hair back. All right, I will see you guys in just a minute. Hey guys, so I've got my resin mixed up. I picked out my alcohol inks, and we're going to make a bloom. So I have mixed up parts A and parts B of the resin. I did 1.5 ounces of each part, and I mixed it for 4 minutes, which is what's suggested. And then I've just been letting it sit and warm up. Stir your resin before you check your temp, because the top is going to be a lot cooler than the bottom. Now we want this right around 100 to 107 degrees, so we're 96.6, 35.6 Celsius before we decant. Because if this is not warm enough, it won't be thick enough to hold our white, and our white will all blob to the bottom. So we're just letting it warm up and thicken. It makes it a little easier to work with. The alcohol inks will spread nicely. The white will float. And we should have a nice bloom. So just remember that. Tip number 1, temperature is the most important part when you're doing a bloom. Because if you do not let this get warm enough and it is cold, all of your white, the resin is too thin, it can't support it, and it will go to the bottom. You won't have a bloom. If it gets too warm and too hot, then the resin has already started curing because it's warming up, of course. So it can't spread the white like it needs to if it's too hot, because it's not moving as much. It's already thickened up too much. So 97.3 Fahrenheit, 36.2 Celsius. We are almost there, guys. By the time I get all this done, we'll be there. Okay, so I do have a little jewelry scale over here to the side. I know you guys can't see it, but I'm going to measure out 20 gram for my white. $20 grams is going to be plenty for the white. I'll have a little extra, but I'd rather make up a little too much than not have enough. You don't want to be making a bloom and then you go to pour your white and you don't have enough. 20 gram, and that's for my white. Now, we're going to see where we're at on this. I dropped a little bit of resin there. Let's clean that up. Okay. 37.4 Celsius, 99.3. Okay, so you can see how fast it's warming up. By the time I get this in there and start dropping my inks, we will have already reached a temperature of probably over 100, which is where we want to be. So let's get all of our resin in here. We don't want to waste any of it. If you scrape your cup, make sure that when you've mixed it up that you did scrape the sides, scrape the bottom, and scrape the stick and mixed it up very well. Because if you don't do that, then you can end up with uncured resin where you didn't mix enough. Okay, I'm going to set that to the side. Now I'm going to put my white in. 2 grams of white to 20 grams. What you remember about the white, tip number 2, white needs to look like skim milk. So if you will do 2 grams to 20, then it should be okay. What you're wanting to think is that a 10 to 1 ratio. 10 gram resin, 1 gram paste. 20 gram resin, 2 gram paste. And that's what I'm doing. You want it to look like skim milk. If you use too much white, then it's all going to blob to the bottom. If you don't use enough white, it's going to look wispy. And a wispy bloom's good too. I do like wispy blooms sometimes. And there's our white. You can still see through the stick. I'm not going to completely mix it quite yet because I want to get our inks in here. Now I have chose turquoise, blue, and sapphire blue. Now I haven't opened these. There it is. I got this little push pin thing in with something one time, and they work great. Oops. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do 4. It's spreading very well. It's a really pretty color, isn't it? Blue. And then I'm going to do turquoise. I want to do kind of a blue-green bloom. Okay, got that one opened. Oh, that's a pretty color too. I like the way these spread. Okay. And then we're going to do our sapphire blue around the edge. These will pull into the center, so they won't be so far out. And you can already see it doing that. I think it's so cool to watch these move in the resin. Okay. Trying to be careful not to put the tip of that alcohol ink into the resin. Now, I'm going to put these back in the box here. I'm going to move this out of the way. And this is the Let's Resin Alcohol Ink 48-piece set. There's quite a few colors in there, and they're all really, really pretty. I've liked them all. Now, let's make sure our white is not streaky here. I can feel the resin warming up, so I know it's at temp for a bloom. Okay. Just going to wipe my stick off. Now I'm trying to get all the bubbles to come to the top. And I'm just going to give that a quick little torch. Okay. Let's get our white in. Now, like I said, yeah, you do your bloom at 100 to 107 degrees Fahrenheit. I like to decant mine right around the lower end because I know I take my time when I make my bloom and I don't want it to get too hot. So that gives me plenty of time for it to still warm up. Now I've just taken a paper towel and wrapped around my cup, and I'm going to pour this white right in a spiral. You can do a piping bag, you can use a stick and draw your petals in. It's however you want to do this. Now I do this, but I don't go all the way to the edge. I go close to the edge, but not next to the edge. And there, I got my drip on the paper towel, and that's why I like to use a paper towel around my cup. Now, if you see any little blobbed areas that look heavy, like here, this would blob, you'd want to pull that through. The end, I kind of connected it, so it's going to be okay. So now what I'm going to do is shape my petals. I'm going to do a basic clock design. So I'm going to go in at 9, and I'm going to go in at 3. Don't take your dotting tool all the way to the bottom because you don't want to scratch your mold. I'm going to go in at 12 and in at 6. And then we're going to split the difference. And now you can take these. Now I only like to do the top half and pull up, because if I go any lower, it ends up having a tendency to blob sometimes because these aren't wide enough to bloom. You do use white pigment paste when you are making your white. And like I said, just remember it's a 10:2 ratio. Now, like I said, I didn't pull through this white in the center, and it will blob if I don't do something about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that blob, and then I'm going to spiral this from the center out, and then I'm going to go out back to the center. And that should give us a nice little pretty swirl in the middle of our bloom. All right, guys, that's all you have to do to make a bloom. Now we just let this go, and as this resin continues to heat up, you'll see it starting to bloom. I can already see it starting to bloom. I don't know if you guys can see that, but this is going to be so pretty, I think. And I'm not going to put a backing on this. I think it's going to be pretty without it. I don't have a lot of room left in the mold either. All right, guys, I'll see you back when it's time to demold. Bye. All right, guys, so this is cured. So it looks like it's not completely cured, but it's cured enough that we can get it out. It looks like it's bloomed very well. The colors are gorgeous. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. All right. Oh, isn't that pretty? That is such a pretty bloom. I love those colors. The light blue center out to the green, and then that blue. Oh, that is gorgeous. Let me get a black background and see what it looks like. I can always put a backing on this, but isn't that pretty? I don't know. I kind of like it with the blue. All right, guys. That's our bloom. I will see you guys back for the next video. Bye.